A father's love knows no distance, the coin that brought us back together. Welcome to our channel where every story is more than just a tale, it's an experience. Today we have a truly heartwarming story that will stay with you long after the video ends. I'd love to hear where you're watching from, so drop a comment below and let me know. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss tomorrow's special story. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to share more incredible moments with you. Let's dive right in. It was a bright and quiet morning at Austin Elementary School in Austin, Texas. The school had planned a unique and special virtual experience for its students. The usual classroom setting was swapped for something entirely different, a direct connection with history. The excitement was palpable as the students prepared to experience something they would never forget. The entire class had gathered in front of their computers for a Zoom call that would bridge the vast distance between them and the heart of the United Kingdom. The teacher, Ms. Samantha Mitchell, was eager to make this lesson unforgettable. She had been working on this project for weeks, ensuring everything was set for the big day. Today's lesson was centered around the traditions and ceremonies that are such an integral part of British military life. The students had learned about the history of the royal family, but today was different. Today, they would get a front row seat to witness one of the most iconic rituals in British culture, the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. As the camera connected, the students were greeted with the majestic sight of the royal guards standing at attention. The towering guards in their iconic red uniforms and black bearskin hats seemed like living statues, their expressions stoic and serious. The grand setting of Buckingham Palace loomed in the background, adding to the surreal nature of the moment. Students, especially the younger ones, could hardly believe their eyes. Some had read about these soldiers in books or seen them in documentaries, but to witness the actual ceremony live, in real time, was something truly special. The atmosphere in the classroom grew quiet. Each student seemed to hold their breath as the video zoomed in on the guards, their every movement precise and deliberate. Ms. Mitchell, standing at the front of the classroom, spoke in a soft and steady voice. "What you're witnessing is a centuries-old tradition," she explained. "Every day, soldiers who have sworn an oath to protect the British monarchy take their place at Buckingham Palace. This ceremony is not just about military duty. It's about honor, tradition, and respect. It is an unbroken line that stretches back in history." The students nodded, captivated by the seriousness of the ceremony. Even though they were miles away in Texas, it felt as though they were part of something far greater than their everyday lives. Ms. Mitchell continued, explaining the history behind the guards' ceremonial duties, why they stood so still, and the rich tradition that accompanied the changing of the guard. This was not just an ordinary lesson, it was an experience that would tie them, if only for a moment, to a distant land with its own set of traditions and values. As the camera panned across the guards, the students couldn't help but be in awe of the sheer discipline and focus that these soldiers embodied. This was a live lesson on commitment, sacrifice, and duty, all rolled into one remarkable moment. And yet, there was one element of the ceremony that Ms. Mitchell had not anticipated, one that would change everything for one of her students. Little did anyone know, this particular Zoom call would become much more personal and emotional than anyone could have imagined. At that very moment, as the camera zoomed in on the guards, standing at attention, a young boy named Jake Anderson, who had been quietly observing, would have a life-changing realization. As he stared at one of the guards, something deep inside him stirred. A connection, a recognition. He felt an overwhelming sense of emotion flood over him. What started as a lesson in military tradition would soon evolve into something much more profound. Jake, a bright, inquisitive 9-year-old, would soon find himself at the center of this powerful moment in history. A history that wasn't just about soldiers and ceremonies. It was about his father, a man who until now Jake believed he had lost forever. The classroom, once filled with a sense of wonder and fascination, suddenly shifted into a hushed silence. As the students watched the ceremonial precision of the royal guards at Buckingham Palace, Jake Anderson sat frozen in his seat, his eyes locked on the screen. The moment was supposed to be a unique historical experience, but for Jake, something else was happening. He had always admired his father, Sergeant Mark Anderson, who served as a Royal Guard in London. The man had left when Jake was just 7 years, and after that their contact had become sparse. 2 years ago, Mark had gone back into service, leaving his family behind with only brief and cryptic letters. The last letter his mother had received spoke of duty and honor, but it was void of the personal connection that Jake had longed for. After that, nothing. No phone calls, no visits. Just silence. The thought of his father had haunted Jake in the quiet moments at night. He missed him desperately. Yet with each passing day, it seemed like his father had vanished from his life. The letters had stopped, and the man who had once been so full of life and love was now just a distant memory. But today, as Jake watched, the guards stand in formation on the Zoom call. Something inside him stirred. His heart began to race, his palms grew clammy. There, in the sea of guards standing perfectly still, he thought he saw something familiar. A flicker, a presence that made his stomach twist. Was it possible? No, he whispered under his breath, unable to believe it. But the longer he stared, the more convinced he became. That was his father. He could feel it deep in his chest, an instinct, a gut feeling he couldn't explain. The man standing in front of Buckingham Palace, as stoic as a statue with eyes fixed forward. It was Mark Anderson, his dad. Without thinking, Jake stood up from his chair, his legs unsteady. His voice cracked as he shouted, "Dad! That's my dad!" His words echoed through the quiet classroom, causing the other students to look at him in confusion. The teacher, Ms. Mitchell, looked back at him, clearly startled. But Jake didn't care. All he could see was the guard on the screen, his father standing there, so close yet so far away. He pointed at the screen, tears welling up in his eyes. "That's my dad," he repeated louder this time. His classmates exchanged confused glances, unsure of what was happening. Ms. Mitchell, trying to regain control of the situation, walked over to Jake. "Jake," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Are you sure? It's just a ceremony. These are royal guards, not personal connections." But Jake was beyond reason. "No, it's him," Jake insisted, his voice filled with raw emotion. "That's my dad. I've been waiting for him to come back, and now I see him." The class was stunned into silence. No one knew what to say, but Jake didn't need them to understand. His eyes were glued to the screen, watching as the guards continued their formation, stepping in perfect unison. But then something happened that only made Jake more certain. The guard, his father, subtly shifted his gaze. For the briefest of moments, his eyes flicked left, right toward the camera, right toward Jake. It wasn't much, just a slight movement, but it was enough. The guard's eyes weren't just cold, professional. There was recognition there. It was as if, in that instant, the rigid military training gave way to a small, vulnerable moment between father and son. Jake's heart skipped a beat. Could it really be? Was his father watching him from across the world? The teacher, still in disbelief, caught the moment on camera. She was about to say something, but the guard quickly turned away, returning to his position. The ceremony continued, but Jake could hardly keep his eyes off the screen. For the first time in what felt like forever, a glimmer of hope surged within him. He wasn't sure what this meant or how it happened, but Jake was certain of one thing. His father was still out there, and he hadn't forgotten him. The room was still and heavy with tension as Jake sat back down in his chair, his eyes never leaving the screen. His fingers trembled as they gripped the edge of the desk, his heart pounding in his chest. It was like time had stopped. For a brief moment, everything felt like it was in slow motion, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The rest of the class was still in shock, unsure of how to react. Ms. Mitchell stood beside Jake, her eyes scanning the screen, trying to understand what he was seeing. She couldn't see what Jake saw. All she saw were a group of soldiers, their faces impassive, their expressions unwavering. But Jake? He was convinced. He had seen his father's eyes, even if it was just for a fleeting moment. As the camera zoomed in on the guards, the ceremony continued with its usual precision. The guards' boots clicked against the stone, their movements synchronized to perfection. But Jake wasn't watching the rest of the guards. His gaze was fixed on the one man, the man who to everyone else was just another soldier, but to him was the father he had been searching for. The guard, standing perfectly still, didn't move a muscle. He was the picture of discipline. But Jake knew, deep down, that there was more to this moment than what met the eye. His father was here, standing before him, across an ocean, in the heart of London, performing his duty. It didn't seem possible, but Jake's heart told him otherwise. The ceremony was nearly over. The guards, once more, fell into formation. But then, just as the final moments were unfolding, something happened that shook Jake to his core. The guard, his father, made a small but significant movement. He didn't flinch, didn't break rank. But there, in the split second between movements, his eyes flickered again. This time, they didn't just glance at the camera. No, this time they lingered. The briefest of moments, but it was enough. Jake felt his breath catch in his throat. This wasn't just a coincidence. His father had seen him. Not only had he recognized the familiar face on the screen, but he had acknowledged him in that unspoken way that only they shared. It was as if the years of silence, the distance, the separation, had all been swept away in that one shared look. It was brief, but it was enough. Jake's eyes filled with tears, his heart racing. His father had been so far away for so long, yet in this instant he was closer than ever. The bond they shared, forged by years of love and memories, had never truly been broken. It had just been hidden, buried beneath the weight of duty and time. But now, it had resurfaced, raw and real, in the most unexpected of places. Ms. Mitchell, noticing Jake's reaction, turned to him. "Jake, are you okay?" she asked softly, her voice filled with concern. But Jake didn't respond. He couldn't. He was speechless, overcome with a mixture of emotions. Relief, joy, sorrow, each one swirling inside him like a storm. He didn't care that no one else understood. This moment was his. His father was still there, still alive, still out there in the world, standing strong, just as he had always done. And for the first time in 2 long years, Jake felt something he hadn't dared to feel in a while. Hope. The ceremony ended, and the camera slowly panned out, showing the guards marching away. But for Jake, the moment wasn't over. He kept his eyes on the screen, his heart still racing, waiting for just one more glance, one more sign that his father had seen him. And then, just as the last of the guards disappeared from view, the screen went black. As the Zoom call ended, the screen flickered to black, leaving Jake staring at the empty frame, his heart still racing. He could hardly breathe. The other students in the classroom had begun to chatter, oblivious to the storm raging inside him. Jake was still fixated on the moment, that one fleeting glance, that tiny movement. He couldn't shake the feeling that his father had seen him, truly seen him, even if no one else had noticed. But there was something more. That small gesture, the subtle touch of his father's finger to his badge, wasn't just a casual movement. Jake knew that touch. It was the secret signal his dad and he used when they couldn't be together, the one they had shared since Jake was a child. It was their way of saying, "I see you." It was their bond, their silent promise that no matter the distance, no matter the time apart, they were still connected. Jake's mind raced, trying to process what had just happened. Could it really be? Was his father really trying to reach out to him, even from across the world? He was shaking, a mix of disbelief and excitement flooding his veins. But in that moment, it all made sense. The connection wasn't just a figment of his imagination. That small gesture, so insignificant to anyone else, was everything to Jake. It was a message, a lifeline thrown across the miles. Ms. Mitchell, seeing Jake's reaction, gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Jake," she said softly, her voice filled with concern. "What's going on? You've been so quiet, so tense. What happened?" Jake couldn't speak at first. His throat felt tight, his chest constricting with emotion. How could he explain this? How could he put into words what he had just witnessed? His father, his real, living father, was still out there. He hadn't forgotten about Jake. He hadn't abandoned him. In fact, his father had just acknowledged him from thousands of miles away, with nothing but a small gesture. Finally, Jake whispered, his voice trembling, "That was my dad." Ms. Mitchell stared at him, bewildered. "Jake, are you sure? This is a ceremony, those are just soldiers." But Jake wasn't listening anymore. His eyes were fixed on the screen, watching as the last of the guards began to disappear from the camera's view. The connection was gone, but the moment between father and son was still burning in Jake's mind. He felt as if the world had shifted. This was real. His dad was still alive. And somehow his dad had seen him. The other students were still talking, unaware of the storm that had just passed through the classroom. But for Jake, nothing else mattered. He had been seen. His father was out there somewhere, and even if they couldn't speak, even if they couldn't be together, they had found each other in the most unexpected of ways. That small moment, the briefest of glances, the touch of the badge, had reconnected them in a way that words never could. Just as Jake began to calm down, trying to collect his thoughts, the classroom door opened. It was the school principal, Mrs. Harrison, holding an envelope in her hand. She approached Ms. Mitchell's desk, handing her the letter. Jake's heart skipped a beat. He had no idea what was in that envelope, but something about it felt important. Ms. Mitchell took the envelope, her face serious. She opened it carefully, and after reading the contents, she turned to Jake. "This came from the Royal Guards. It's for you." Jake stood up slowly, his legs shaky. His hands were clammy as he took the letter from Ms. Mitchell. He opened it, and as his eyes scanned the words, his heart nearly stopped. The letter was written in elegant official handwriting. "Dear Mr. Anderson, we understand that duty requires silence and distance, but there are moments when that distance must be crossed. Your son Jake has shown a resilience and love that reminds us all why we stand guard. The bond you share is not broken by miles or duty. In that brief moment, when you touched your badge, know that he felt you. Know that he sees you just as you see him. Attached, you will find a Royal Guard coin, a symbol of the unbroken connection between a father and son, no matter the distance. With respect and honor, the Royal Guard Regiment." Jake's eyes welled up with tears. The coin, the letter, the acknowledgement. It was all real. His father had seen him, and the Royal Guards had honored their bond in the most beautiful way. He wasn't alone anymore. The room seemed to fade away as Jake clutched the letter and the coin to his chest, his heart full of emotions he couldn't quite put into words. But he didn't need to speak. The connection he'd always longed for was there. It had never truly disappeared. The days after the Zoom call felt like a blur. For Jake, it was as if the world had shifted beneath him, the air thick with the weight of his discovery. His father was alive. The connection had been made, even across the vast distance that separated them. But it wasn't just the acknowledgement that left Jake in awe. It was the letter from the Royal Guards. It was a gesture that spoke volumes, that transcended the boundaries of military duty, and touched something deeper. The letter, with its official seal, had arrived at school only a few days after the Zoom call. Jake couldn't stop reading it, over and over, letting the words sink in. But it wasn't just the message that mattered to him. It was the Royal Guard coin that had been included in the envelope. A small yet powerful symbol of connection. A token that would forever remind him of that fleeting moment of recognition. The moment when his father had, in some small way, told him he was still there. Jake carried the letter and the coin with him everywhere, keeping them tucked safely in his backpack. Every time he looked at the coin, he thought about his father, standing so tall, so proud, just across the ocean in London. The idea that the bond they shared, though silent and stretched thin by time and distance, had never broken, filled him with an overwhelming sense of peace. It was the kind of peace that comes from knowing you're not alone, no matter how far apart you are from the ones you love. Then one afternoon, Jake came home from school to find something waiting for him. On the kitchen table, next to the usual stack of mail, was another envelope. This time, it was addressed directly to him. His heart skipped a beat. The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, yet it wasn't the handwriting of anyone in his family. It was official, but there was something about the way the letters were carefully formed that made Jake feel like this wasn't just another letter. This was something important. He opened it carefully, almost afraid to disturb the envelope, in case it contained something that would change everything. As he unfolded the paper inside, his breath caught in his throat. It was another letter, but this one was different from the first. Dear Jake, I hope this letter finds you well. I've received word of your reaction to our recent ceremony, and I wanted to take a moment to write to you personally. I have to admit, I never imagined that a brief glance, a subtle gesture, would have such an impact on both of us. But what you may not know, Jake, is that your father has always carried you with him in his heart. The distance between us, the years apart, have not changed the love he holds for you. The bond between a father and son is not easily broken, and though duty may keep us apart, it is love that binds us. I wanted you to know that your father, Sergeant Mark Anderson, is proud of you. He has watched over you in ways you'll never fully understand, even when he was unable to speak to you. That brief moment during the ceremony, the look, the touch of the badge, was not just a sign of duty. It was a sign of his love for you. Enclosed with this letter, you will find a special memento. It is a Royal Guard challenge coin, a piece of history, just as you are. May it serve as a reminder that no matter where we are, you and your father will always be connected. With deepest respect, the Royal Guard Regiment. Jake couldn't breathe. He sat there staring at the letter in his hands, overwhelmed by what it meant. This wasn't just a letter of acknowledgement. It was an acknowledgement of love, of connection, of an unbreakable bond between him and his father. The words on the page, though simple, resonated deeply within him. His father had never forgotten him. Despite everything, the years of silence, the distance, the duty that kept him away, his father had always been there, just waiting for the right moment to reach out. And then, like a wave crashing over him, the weight of the situation hit Jake. The Royal Guard coin, the letter, everything, it was all real. His father had sent this. He wasn't just a soldier doing his duty. He was a father, reaching out to his son across the world, telling him he was proud, telling him he was seen. The letter was more than just words. It was a bridge across the ocean, connecting Jake to the man he had longed to see again. And now, with the coin in his hand, Jake felt like he had something to hold on to, something that would carry him through the days ahead. He wasn't alone. He had his father's love, and that was something no distance could ever take away. Jake sat on his bed, the Royal Guard challenge coin resting in his palm, cold against his skin. The letter from the Royal Guard Regiment still lay on his desk, its words echoing in his mind. His father's love, his pride, had never been lost, even after all these years. It was there, in the small moments, those fleeting glimpses during the ceremony, the touch of the badge. The gesture wasn't just a soldier's habit. It was a father's silent vow that, no matter the distance, their bond would remain unbroken. Jake ran his fingers over the coin again, the smooth edges offering some comfort, though it couldn't fully fill the emptiness he felt from the years of silence. He had always longed to hear his father's voice, to feel his presence, but that seemed so far out of reach. Yet now, with this coin in his hand, and the letter that validated everything he'd felt, it felt like his father was finally reaching back to him. Every night before he went to sleep, Jake would hold the coin and whisper to the empty room. He would speak to the photograph of his father that sat on his nightstand, a younger version of Mark, standing tall in his uniform, his face full of determination. "I'm still here, Dad," Jake would say, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll be strong, just like you." It was a small comfort, but it was all he had. The world seemed to rush by, but in those moments everything slowed down. Jake felt connected to his father more than ever. Even without words, even without a phone call, he knew they were still tethered together by something greater than time or distance. But then, one evening, a few weeks after receiving the coin, something extraordinary happened. The phone rang, breaking the silence of Jake's room. He jumped, startled by the sudden noise. It was a number he didn't recognize, a foreign number with a country code he didn't know. His heart raced as he hesitated, unsure if he should answer. But something inside him told him to pick up. "Hello?" Jake said, his voice shaky. There was a long pause on the other end, the only sound being the faint rustling of static. Then a voice, deep and familiar, broke through the silence. "Jake? Is that you?" Jake's heart leapt in his chest. He knew. That voice. It was his father. The connection was faint, crackling as if coming from far away, but Jake could hear the emotion in his father's voice. "Dad?" Jake whispered, almost not believing it. Mark's voice was filled with warmth, a tenderness Jake hadn't heard in so long. "I'm sorry it took so long, son. I've been thinking about you every day." Tears filled Jake's eyes as he clutched the phone tighter. "I thought you'd forgotten about me," he choked out, his voice barely a whisper. "Never," his father replied firmly. "I never forgot. I've always been with you, in spirit. Duty kept me away, but my love for you never wavered. And now I can finally tell you, I'm coming home soon." Jake's mind reeled, his breath catching in his throat. His father was coming home. After everything, after all the waiting, the silence, it was finally happening. His father was coming. The conversation continued, but for Jake it was as if the rest of the world faded away. His father was coming home. He could barely comprehend it, but in his heart he knew it was real. The bond they shared, even though tested by time and distance, was unbreakable. Love had bridged the gap between them. As the call ended, Jake sat. In stunned silence, the phone still pressed against his ear. He could hardly believe it. His father, the man who had stood watch over the royal palace, the man who had silently loved him from afar, was finally coming back. The bond between them had endured, and now it would finally be whole again. Jake looked down at the royal guard coin in his hand, the symbol of their connection, and for the first time in a long time, he felt complete. His father was coming home, and that, Jake realized, was all he had ever needed. Wow, what an emotional journey we've just experienced together. This story of connection, love, and the unbreakable bond between father and son is one that truly tugs at the heartstrings. We'd love to know what you think. Have you ever had a moment in your life where you felt a deep, unexpected connection with someone, even when they were far away? Maybe a parent, a friend, or someone you thought you'd lost? Please share your thoughts and personal experiences in the comments below. It's always amazing to hear how these stories resonate with you. And don't forget, your feedback means a lot to us. If you enjoyed this video, if it touched your heart, or if it reminded you of a special connection you have with someone, let us know. We read every single comment, and we love hearing from you. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. You won't want to miss out on our future videos filled with heartfelt stories just like this one. Hit that bell icon so you're the first to know when a new video goes live. Thanks for being part of this journey with us. We can't wait to hear from you.